Let's do it. Everything is recording. Everything is running. Dilly dilly. I'm a happy boy. Storming the Capitol. Some did it for QAnon. Some did it for MAGA. But the smartest of the bunch did it for pussy. Listening to this podcast probably won't get you laid, but it will help you kill an hour of your time. A fresh episode of the Savage Sack Tap starts now.
You're listening to the Savage Sack Tap. It's not a podcast, it's not a half-cast, it's just a quick shot to the balls to help you finish off the week. We're cutting through the bullshit, filling your Friday with rage-fueled logic, and cracking a few jokes along the way. So grab a bag of frozen peas. There's a Savage Sack Tap coming your way.
Smooth, lascivious, salacious, outrageous.
Howdy, partners. I am Mike Montone. This is the Savage Sack Tap. Thank you for sacrificing some of your precious, irreplaceable time on this earth listening to my incoherent and ill-informed musings. Seriously, I hope this finds you well. Things are getting way too absurd right now. I scroll through Facebook and the pearl clutching and arguing are just at a fever pitch. I was talking to a couple buddies on my group text, and they're telling me that they've had family members telling them to save their souls and suck their dicks over their politics, which too much and from two completely different ends of the spectrum. Although I guess that's what you do when you're a preteen boy in the Catholic Church. You have to suck a few dicks to save your soul. So maybe they're onto something. But personally, I think we should all just chill the fuck out. We have the best weekend of football all season upon us. We got Brady playing Breeze. It could be the last time that we see two of the all-time great QBs go head-to-head. There's a chance we could get a Rodgers versus Mahomes Super Bowl. There's just no need to be so up in arms over things that are going on in our nation's capital. That's what I think. So instead of droning on and on about fucking politics or whatever, because I know that's what everybody's doing. Everybody is they're just doing politics because it's like what's fucking hot and what's trending in the streets right now. And they're trying to work the algorithms, and they're trying to give the right opinion to their information silo, whether they're fucking, MAGA or they're BLM or whatever, whoever the fuck they're trying to appeal to. Well, I'm trying to appeal to people who don't really give a shit about any of that. We'll touch on it later, but, in a different way. You'll see. We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of politics, but we'll get there. But I want to appeal to people who would like to spend their Saturday hearing the story of a guy I just learned about last month, and I have become absolutely fascinated with. His name is Albert Fish. His real name is Hamilton Fish, but when he was a kid, the other kids would tease him by calling him Ham and Eggs, so he started to go by Albert, and then after deciding to go by the name Albert, he also decided to go around killing and eating little kids. Albert Fish, one of the great serial killers of all times. I guess not great. I don't know if you should use the word great with serial killers. One of the most infamous serial killers of all time. And I'm usually not into serial killer stories. I have too active of an imagination, so if I get too into that shit, I'll just start becoming I'll be a paranoid mess, and I'll start wondering if everyone I see walking down the street is a serial killer trying to case my house for an attack. But Fish was active in the 1920s, and I do love a good period piece, except for that time last year when some fucking chick had her rag while I was plowing her on top of my weighted blanket. Not easy to clean up, let me tell you. Fucking baking soda and seltzer doesn't get that shit out. That's a bad period piece. But I am fascinated by pre-modern murder stories because it's really interesting to see what kind of detective work goes into tracking down the killer without the assistance of, because now we have surveillance cameras and all this shit. You can track someone's cell phone, and it's very hard, I feel like these days, to commit a good homicide. But back in the old days, they say most murders in the old days went unsolved. And when you get into the story of this Albert Fish character, you see how long and how laborious the process of tracking him down was, and how how close it came to not being solved, and you're like, holy fucking shit, we've come a long, long way, baby. And if you are into that kind of stuff, before I get into what this Albert Fish was all about, if you're into that kind of shit, I would highly recommend checking out this book. It's called The Murder of the Century. It's about the 1897 murder of a German guy in New York City, this guy Guldensoup. He was involved in a love triangle, and things just went fucking haywire, and his parts of his body washed up on like the East River. It's a true story, but it reads like a novel. And then if you prefer fiction, I would suggest The Alienist and The Angel of Death by Caleb Carr. Both of those are fucking awesome. They made them into TV shows for TNT and did what I would call is a serviceable job. But there's just too much in the books to really get done in like a 10-episode season, which is about what they gave each installment. So I would say if you need something to read, especially in the winter, there's jack shit to do because everyone's still locked down, start with The Alienist. It's about a bunch of prepubescent cross-dressing boy hookers being murdered and desecrated, all while New York City's elite try to keep things under wraps because, as it turns out, New York City's social elite were actually spending a lot of time downtown cornholing prepubescent boys dressed as chicks. So George Soros absolutely fucking hates that book. Jeff Epstein loved it, and I think you'll love it too. And I couldn't help but wonder, after reading the story of Albert Fish, if the Albert Fish story helped inspire those novels, because Fish was very much into murdering prepubescent children and desecrating their bodies, as you will see if you get deep into his story. And even if you don't read this book that I'm about to give you a passage from, even if you don't do that, spend a few minutes and check out his fucking Wikipedia entry. It is off the wall shit. I mean, this guy, I hang out with people who have what most would consider deviant sexual fetishes, and this motherfucker just put them all to shame. So he was caught after a very lengthy manhunt that started when he killed a boy on Staten Island, and then he kills another kid in Brooklyn, and then a third, this chick from Manhattan, this little girl whose parents sent her off with him with their permission. He goes and he murders her up in Westchester. And when I say with the parents' permission, I mean they literally sent their daughter off into the fucking ether with a complete stranger without even asking a second question. Just complete fucking idiots. I don't want to ruin too much of the story, but like I said, I figured it would be fun to give you a taste of this book. It's called Deranged, The Shocking True Story of America's Most Fiendish Serial Killer, and it's by Harold Schechter, if you want to get it yourself. But like I said, just gonna give you a couple quick passages. Where do we start? So to set this up, Albert Fish he would look for women to write letters to through, they were called matrimonial services, and I guess it's kind of like Bumble or whatever today meets like a mail order bride or whatever, and he would try to find women to bed down or what have you, or take him in and indulge in these sort of like spanking and abusive weirdo fucking fetishes that he had. So I wanted to what do we have here? Is this the one? Yeah, so he's pretending to be this guy named Hayden, and a detective is instructing this woman, Miss Shaw, to correspond with him because they're trying to track him down. Under Kemper's instructions, Miss Shaw continued to correspond with Hayden. Indeed, she made the tone of her letters markedly more personal, addressing him for the first time as "My dear Robert." The increased intimacy of her letters sent Fish into rapturous flights of utterly degraded fantasy. "My dearest, darling, sweetest little girly Grace," Fish wrote to her on November 9th. "Just got your letter calling me dear Robert. Dear honey heart of mine, you have captured me. I am your slave, and everything I have is yours. prick, balls, ass, and all the money you want. If you were my own sweet wife, you would not be afraid of me. Oh, girlie of my heart, I would love you, and how? Hug, kiss, squeeze you, spank you. Then kiss just where I spanked you, your nice, pretty, fat, sweet ass. You won't need toilet paper to wipe your sweet, pretty, fat ass, as I shall eat all of it, then lick your sweet ass clean with my tongue. And so on. Good stuff. There's a lot. This is literally, I want to say, how many fucking pages is this book? 250. It's literally 250 pages of this guy murdering little kids and telling women that he wants to lick the shit out of their assholes. So if you're into that kind of stuff, which I guess, you know, if you hate kids and you love scat play, then this is definitely the book for you. What's the other passage I wanted to, let me see. One, is it there? Yeah, this one's going to be a tad longer, but since it's Albert Fish, I'm sure it's worth it. What do we got? Sorry. It's hard to fold this, and to light the room, I had to dim the lights on the sides of me, but that's not exciting. Here we go. Without a doubt, the day's weirdest testimony, this is when he's on trial, came from the person described by reporters as a surprise defense witness. This was Mary Nicholas, Fish's 17-year-old step-kitty, to whom he'd written from Eastview, promising her 18 good hard smacks on her bare behind for her birthday. That's what you would want from your step-grandfather. For your 18th birthday, you would want him to pull up your skirt and spank your bare behind 18 times. And describing the voyeuristic opportunities available at the YMCA. Dempsey had brought her to White Plains from her home in Bartlett, Ohio, to testify on behalf of the old man she continued to refer to as Papa. A plain-featured high school freshman with a pug nose and round wire frame glasses, Mary struck the street-savvy newsman of the press table as the epitome of Midwestern innocence. Reared in rural Ohio, the youngest of 7 children of Miss Merton Nicholas, one of the 3 women Fish had wed illegally in 1930, the dark-haired teenager seemed as naive as a nursery schooler as she told of the bizarre doings that had taken place in her home shortly after Fish's arrival. It had been January 1930, when Mary was 12, that Fish had traveled to the Nicholases' little house in Bartlett to meet Mary's widowed mother, whose name he had gotten from a matrimonial agency. He spent the first night getting acquainted with the family and describing his train trip from New York. On the second night, he offered to teach the children some games. What games? Dempsey asked. Buck, buck, how many hands up? Mary said pleasantly. Speaking in the tone of voice grown-ups tend to use when conversing with very young children, Dempsey asked her to explain how the game was played. He went into his room, said Mary, and he had a little pair of trunks, brown trunks that he put on. He took everything else off but those. He put those on and came to the front room, and he got down on his hands and knees, and he had a paint stick that he stirred paint with. About how big a stick was that? It was about that long, Mary said, holding her hands approximately 2 feet apart, and about that wide, she said, moving her palms to within 6 inches of each other. Dempsey asked her to continue. He would give the stick to one of us, and then he would get down on his hands and knees, and we would sit on his back one at a time, with our back facing him, and he would put up so many fingers, and he would want us to... he was to tell how many fingers we had up, and if he guessed right, which he never did, why, we weren't supposed to hit him. Sometimes he would even say, more fingers than we really had, and if he never guessed right, why, we would hit him as many fingers as we would have up. I'm sorry, I'm reading, this is the way a Midwestern dope from the 1930s speaks, so some of the grammar is a little jumbled. Justice Close leaned toward the witness. Was your mother there when you played that, he asked. Yes. How long would you play that game, Dempsey asked. For hours? Oh no, Mary said. We wouldn't play it very long. Just about an hour at the time every evening. Occasionally, Mary went on to explain, they played the game with a hairbrush instead of a stick. for variety's sake. This is great. And the reason they're only playing it for a little while is because eventually he's got to go to his room and jack off after getting spanked by these kids. And like I said, this is a pretty lengthy passage that I'm going through here, but I felt like it was worth it just because this guy is so fucking ridiculous. Anyway, which end of the hairbrush would you hit him with? Dempsey asked. Mary shrugged. Sometimes the side with the bristles on, sometimes the other side. Just whichever way we happened to pick it up. And all he had on was this little pair of trunks? Yes, and they were very thin. When Dempsey asked if she and her siblings had played anything else with their elderly guest, Mary said yes, a game called Sack of Potatoes Over. And how was that one played? Inquired Dempsey. He put on those little trunks, and then he would throw us up on his shoulder, and we would slide down his back, and we would scratch him with our nails. By the time we would get through playing, why, his back would be red. Fish had also tried to introduce his new little friends to another of his favorite activities, but this time he had met with some resistance. He bought a package of pins with him, Mary explained, and he told my sister and I one evening to see if we could stick those pins in our fingernails right up there just as far as they could get in. And he gave my sister and I one, and before we even had any stuck into our fingers, he had stuck a pin into his finger too. In how many fingers did he stick it? All of them. How far up did he shove the pins? As far as it would go. So, to clarify for those just joining, or those who have been fast-forwarding through this, after having the kids spank him with the bristled end of a hairbrush or a paint stick, he would then jam like sewing needles, like little fucking those pins that you use to hold shit in place while you sew. He would jam those under his fucking fingernails. And this is a guy who literally, he met them the day before. This would be like if you met a chick who had a couple kids on Bumble, and she brings you over to her house to meet the kids, and you decide to switch into a pair of thin brown shorts, have the kids spank you, dig their nails into your back, and then watch as you shove sewing needles underneath your fingernails. That's what this motherfucker was into. Fish seemed disappointed that Mary and her sister weren't as enthusiastic about this pastime as they had about Buck, how many hands up, and Sack of Potatoes Over. I love that. Yeah, I also love that he just named these just ridiculous fucking names for a game that he's explaining to these kids to make it seem like it makes perfect sense. Well, it is Buck, how many hands up, so if he can't guess how many fucking hands we have up, then we do have to spank him, because of course those are the rules. And the same thing with this Sack of Potatoes Over. Oh, well, he's holding us over his back like a burlap sack full of potatoes, which, yeah, that would scratch your back as you walked around with it over your shoulder. And so, if we're going to be the sack of potatoes, we gotta scratch this guy's back. Little do these children know that this guy was definitely whacking off after that. Apparently no one in the Nicholas household saw anything wrong with Fish's little games. They couldn't help noticing, however, that the old man did have a few habits that seemed peculiar even to them. Every night we would get through playing the games, Mary continued. Why, he would go to the toilet, and he took all the paper off the roll and lit it, and he had a big fire. The first night we noticed it, I just happened to be outside and seen smoke coming out the door, and I ran back and told my mother. We went down there, and there he was, and he had a fire in the middle of the floor. She told him to put it out, and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't put it out, so we got some water and put it out. Did the fire do much damage? Asked Dempsey. No. Did it burn the floor? No, he done that every night. He set a fire every night? Dempsey asked, his nose tinged with incredulity. Yes, every night. In the center of the floor, then? Yes. Apparently, however, Fish's virtues, whatever they were, outweighed his shortcomings in the eyes of Mary's mother. 10 days after the old man showed up in Bartlett with his paint stick and matches, and package of pins, he and the widow Nicholas were married. How fucking desperate were chicks back in the 1930s that this fucking weirdo shows up? He's got your kids spanking him. He's walking around half naked. He's lighting fucking fires in your bathroom. This was like an outhouse, by the way. So he's going into an outhouse. He's taking a shit, and he's lighting fires in there, and burning up all your fucking toilet paper too. So he's just a shitty house guest, and he's trying to get your kids to jam pins up their fingernails, and you're like, yeah. After a 10-day courtship, you decide, yeah, we'll settle down. We'll get this works for me. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. I cannot recommend enough. Again, the name of the book is Deranged: The Shocking True Story of America's Most Fiendish Serial Killer. It's by Harold Schechter. Do yourselves a favor and check it out. My boss got it for me for Christmas, and I ripped through it. I was done with it in like 2 weeks, 2.5 fucking weeks. Yeah, Albert Fish, wild stuff. He was into all sorts of shit, mostly self-flagellation, but also considerable amounts of scat play, as we saw there with the burning the shit in the shit house. Scat play weirds me out big time, which I guess that might surprise you. Like, I mean, I've always found it hilarious. Like, we used to, in high school, one of our big websites that we'd go to was scatlovers.com. You do you remember the old goof on AIM where you'd send someone a short link and you'd be like, hey man, you got to check out these sneakers I'm thinking about getting, and they would click on it and it would be a link to, like two dudes fucking each other, like Lemon Party or Tub Girl. We would do it to this website called Scat Lovers, and it was just people shitting on each other. But I'm still fucking grossed out by it. Like, I can't imagine being into scat play. That weird. I don't understand how you get there. Which, I'm an outspoken member of the ass-eating community, and as an Iraq war veteran, I have jerked off countless times in porta-shitters. Which is actually one of the things that makes me believe that I might actually be able to do porn if I tried, because I feel like if you can get it up and get yourself to come while sitting on top of a mount, what amounts to a porta-john is pretty much sitting on top of a mound of shit on a 120-degree day in the Middle East with people noisily milling about right outside of your little jack shack, then I feel like you can get it up to fuck under pretty much any condition. But in terms of scat play, like he's talking about licking shit out of a woman's asshole, there is a line to be drawn there. Like, if I'm eating ass, I want it to be spick, span, and hairless. Like, I essentially want the asshole should be a continuation of the woman's, prim and proper pussy. Like, I'm absolutely happy to toss a salad as long as some care has been taken in preparing the anus. I think that is the sort of universal standard that we should all apply to rectal play. You shouldn't be requesting that duty be left in behind. Porta-shitter tugging, though, I could happily go my entire life without doing again. I don't know at this age in what circumstances I would find myself wanting to jack off in or needing to jack off in a porta-shitter, unless I deployed again. That's the only way I could imagine having to do that. But those were acts of necessity, since there's really no, outside of that, there's no real privacy in Iraq. But generally speaking, I like a nice, clean environment for my sexual dalliances. I love reading. I read about like Motley Crue and the old metal bands all the time, and how they would live in roach-infested apartments, and they'd be banging chicks after shows on the Sunset Strip. When they were kind of rising up through the ranks, trying to make their bones. But it was really only, if you've seen the opening scene from The Dirt, you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's just fucking... It is a roach hole, and these guys are managing to fuck in it. It was only after jerking off, because there was nowhere else for them to fuck. That's all they had. It was only after jerking off in a porta-shitter that I could comprehend how someone could get and maintain an erection under those particular circumstances. When I first read those books, I was like, just fucking awful. Disgusting. And the same thing, I would say, goes with jerk-off booths. We were talking about, on the show that I work for the other day, and I was thinking about this. I get the idea of seeing a live fuck show and everything, but I can't fathom, especially now in the time of HD streaming porn, why anyone would pay for such an experience. Like, I don't mean, I've been to, when I was in Thailand, you could go to a strap-on show with your buddies, or if you're having a bachelor party or a birthday party, you get some strippers. But that's an event, right? It's not a 15-minute tug in a public booth, right? Like, I'm at a point now where I only defecate publicly if it's an absolute necessity. So I don't know if I see the allure of throwing down my hard-earned cash to go jerk off in a booth that some other guy just dumped a load inside of. Because his BO and that general male essence, like, you can feel, like, when some dude's too close to you in the locker room or something like that, and you're catching too much of his essence, or like sitting on a warm toilet seat, and you can still kind of feel the previous shitter's presence, but now you're trying to get hard and come, and there's a time limit, and if you don't finish, you're like, oh, well, I just wasted a bunch of fucking money. So it's just, I guess what I'm saying is I don't see the value proposition in the experience. If that makes sense. Yes, Roland Perez chiming in on the live stream. Make sure she doesn't have Taco Bell. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a video kicking around somewhere of Cardi B explaining to the youngins how they have to clean their assholes, and she's telling them, look, if your generation is into eating ass, you have to get up inside the hole. Like, you can't just clean out the rim if someone's gonna have their fucking tongue up your ass. So yeah, good. Hey, it's 2021. Everyone should be eating ass, but if you insist on being the recipient of a rim job, there's a social contract at play where, you shouldn't be eating a corn filled. Well, actually, no, you do use the corn, because the corn, I've learned from adult film stars, is what lets you know after you've been shitting that everything is cleared out, because the corn is the last thing to get broken down by the digestive system. So once you've shit out all the corn, that's when you know. But yeah, a Taco Bell burrito would leave a foul and an unpleasant scene back there. So let's be careful, and let's be courteous with that. Anyway, you know who does not need to find a booth to jerk off in? There's this one guy from upstate New York who helped storm the Capitol, and I was reading about him in the Post, and he has been having a great time. Here's their copy. The upstate New York dope caught smoking marijuana inside a senator's office during the U.S. Capitol riots said his profile on the dating app Bumble has been blowing up after the siege. Brandon Fellows, 26, was easily weeded out as one of those storming the building after he was caught puffing a joint with his muddy boots propped up on a table in the office of Senator Merkley, Democrat, Oregon. And I absolutely love the Post. If I had to go back to working in the news industry, it would have to be with the New York Post, because I just love the smug little shit way they write all of their news copy, with the upstate New York dope weeded out. Fucking they're just having too good of a fucking time over at the Post. This one is going to get me incriminated, Fellows told Bloomberg News of the footage of him inside the senator's trashed office. Still, Fellows insisted he had no regrets and is already planning to return to Washington, D.C. to protest Joe Biden's inauguration. We are really living in a world that's beyond parody at this point. Like, if you're making a living writing for The Onion, I would consider updating my resume and maybe finding something else to do, because the news cycle as it is doesn't even make room for you to make shit up anymore. But while he fears spending time in federal prison, his infamy has been doing wonders for his love life, blowing up his profile on Bumble. The handyman who lives in a converted school bus told Bloomberg. His political views have fractured his relationship with his family, however, with only his grandparents inviting him to Christmas dinner, but making him eat in his bus because he didn't take COVID-19 seriously enough, he said. And you know what? I bet there are a lot of snooty, play-it-safe types out there who think that this guy is a grade A piece of shit. But you're at home ordering Uber Eats, watching Tiger King, and shaming your neighbors by plastering their picture all over social media because they took out the garbage without putting a mask on. You think that's fucking living. That's not living. You are a voluntary prisoner. Brandon Fellows, on the other hand, is living his fucking life. You might not like the way he lives it, but he is having a serious lived experience. How many people can honestly say that they're getting all sorts of pussy on Bumble, traveling all over the country to attend riots, and got to put their feet up on the desk of a congressman while smoking weed in the U.S. Capitol during a moment that will be immortalized in the history books? All right, you don't have to like the guy, but you do kind of have to admire the way he lives. And I love this quote from him. He admitted scaling a wall to reach the building, saying he thought, "I'm not missing this. This is history," and was shown helping others climb over too, Bloomberg said. Yeah, that's right. When this guy's 4-year-old grandson sits on his knee and says, "Grandpa, where were you when the libs were trying to steal our democracy?" he can tell them about storming the Capitol to save the Republic by smoking weed, shitting in the hallways, and stealing a lectern. That's how you do it. He can also tell them about all the freak pussy he's been getting on Bumble. I mentioned that before, but to reiterate, apparently these MAGA chicks fuck. You know that they've been talking about that Air Force veteran? Her name's Ashley Babbitt, who was killed during the riot. Well, also reported by the New York Post, she was involved in what's come to be known as a throuple with her husband and another chick. And a throuple is where you have two women who are open-minded and sexually adventurous enough to have a 3-person relationship with a very lucky gentleman who, if he's really lucky, is hard of hearing, so he doesn't have to listen to the two fucking broads yapping all the time and just gets to enjoy blowing a nice load on 4 different tits. But I'm looking at the 3 of them, and the chick that they picked up is a 29-year-old bartender with a really nice face, bleached blonde hair, and a nose ring. And the husband looks like a fucking pirate. He's got this huge beard and a tattoo of a lion right in the middle of his chest. And, you know, whenever something like this happens, it's the survivors that you feel the worst for. Because while this woman got to die in a blaze of glory, defending freedom from a secret cabal of reptilian billionaire child molesters, the other 2 are left behind with only their memories of the dirty, all-holes-filled, ass-eating, pussy-grinding, load-shooting 3-ways that they used to have. Yes, Roland Perez Jr. chiming in once again. She is the absolute definition of a good egg. The other chick that they were banging is a good egg too. I highly recommend checking out the New York Post article about that. The headline is Ashley Babbitt and husband were reportedly in a throuple, and it's good stuff. I mean, it's like they're not the 2 hottest chicks on the planet, but they are, as far as chicks who are going to be in a throuple with a guy who looks like Blackbeard the pirate, they are legit. looks like a lot of fun was going on between those three, and I'm sorry that it had to end the way it did. Yeah, very sad. My throat's getting a little scratchy. One sec there. All right, here we go. What's next on the docket? Yes, that's right. Anyone who thought the weirdness would end in 2021, by the way, is a complete fucking idiot, because it is clearly only going to get weirder from here. I think this is going to be like the 1970s or like the 20s or whatever, where it's a decades-long trend until people just get tired of it, and eventually weed and psychedelics will be legal everywhere. I think that's going to be the end of this period of weirdness, is going to be a period of calm inspired by weed and psychedelics being legalized kind of across the board, and people are just going to chill out. They're going to be doing ketamine, they're going to be smoking blunts, mushrooms, Molly. There's going to be a lot more thruples popping up, and people will be just doing fucking CrossFit, getting high, and having a good time. We're going to chill out and just harness our collective chi. But for now, proof positive that the weirdness will continue is this headline. NASCAR requires Hailie Deegan to take sensitivity training. And I'm not a car racing guy. This isn't a car racing show. But I came across the headline, and it was just one of those things that caught my eye. NASCAR and sensitivity training, and especially a fucking chick. But here's what they say. NASCAR officials will require driver Hailie Deegan to take sensitivity training before the 2021 season after her use of an offensive word during an online racing stream Sunday. Deegan apologized Sunday night after using a term that disparages those with intellectual disabilities during an iRacing event. The stream, since deleted, was the first from her personal account on Twitch. Wow, getting booted on your first stream. I guess she called an opponent retarded. And I'm going to be totally honest, I still use retarded. I think the whole R-word thing is pretty retarded, if we're being totally honest. I mean, we are literally talking about a word that means mentally slow, or slow in general. To retard something means to slow it down. So you're saying that someone is mentally slow. And there's a great old clip of Norm Macdonald explaining that since you can't say retarded anymore, he uses Down syndrome instead. And I think it was on Stern, and he got in a lot of trouble for it. But objectively speaking, that clip is fucking hilarious. He says, "Oh, I don't say you'd have to be retarded to think that." He says, I say, well, you'd have to have Down syndrome to think that. And people got really, really mad. But yeah, much like Mr. McDonald, I do subscribe to the Michael Scott philosophy that you wouldn't call a retarded person a retard because it's in bad taste, but it's fine to call your friend a retard when they're acting stupid. And I really did think that was a good settling point for the word retarded, because it exists without vitriol. And at its core, I think vitriol is the element that we need to use when determining if something said was being mean or being in bad taste. But I guess not. The powers that be, the wokenistas at NASCAR. I didn't know there were wokenistas at NASCAR. I think what really happened, and I feel bad for this chick and for NASCAR, because I don't think the average NASCAR fan gives a shit about any of this. I'm 100% positive that if you spent an hour in the stands at a NASCAR event, the word retard would be the least offensive word that you would hear. I have a feeling that you might hear a number of other words that would be deemed slurs by those in Red Hook and on the Upper West Side. Just an inkling. But NASCAR they're making her take sensitivity training because NASCAR depends on sponsorship from corporate America, and corporate America is beholden to every psycho with a Twitter account, and those people, as you know, have way too much time on their hands. I mean, like, seriously, think about it this way. If a football coach uses the word cripple during a press conference, Does he have to apologize? Like, if one of the coaches, say Sean McVay, they're playing, the Rams are playing the Packers in a couple hours. If Sean McVay says, we want to, we're going to use the blitz to cripple their passing attack, did he just use an ableist slur, or did he just use the word cripple in an accurate manner? I mean, I fucking despise language policing. It drives me fucking insane. And, again, Hailie Deegan, as with the MAGA chicks in that freak-ass thruple that we were just talking about, Hailie Deegan is tossing around the word retard, and she's pretty hot. And look, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know if she's a listener. I don't know if any of the few dozen listeners that I have an in with Hailie Deegan. But if this chick is into live streaming and hurling around offensive words, then I would absolutely love to team up with her for an OnlyFans where we say offensive things while performing various sex acts on each other. Like, how much fun would it be to make money, make a side hustle, as the kids say, by having this chick sit on my face while she calls her enemies retarded? We talked before about living life to the fullest, like the MAGA rioters who are smoking weed and fucking all over the place. Well, it's also important to find work that you love, and I, for one, would love to eat some pussy while some chick tweaks her nipples and shouts socially unacceptable words into the camera. That's living. Livin, baby. Anywho. Deep breath. I drank a shitload. I had a fucking cup of coffee, some chai, and some green tea. So I am fucking riding on caffeine right now. That's why I gotta kind of pause and calm myself down for a second. I don't know how Tim Dillon does it. I was watching his show last night, and he just fucking goes. And he's not in the best. He's hilarious, but he's not in the best shape either. I'm worried. I worry about guys like him and Alex Jones, if they're just gonna have a fucking heart attack and drop dead mid rant. I really don't know how those guys just keep going. Like, you have to boost your fucking endurance for it. What do we got here? Yeah, so, alright, despite the fact everyone gets their news and stuff from, Drudge Report or Politico, Twitter, Barstool, Reddit, content aggregators, I still like to get a lot of my news from good old-fashioned newspapers, and as such, I still come across a lot of Dear Abby letters, and every once in a while, I read one and feel the need to kind of offer my own sage advice to the writer in question. So with that in mind, I want to take a look and see what Abby had in store for us this week, because I found a couple good ones. So here's the first. Dear Abby, my husband and I are going on 19 years of marriage and have 3 teenage girls. We've had multiple rounds of marriage counseling, mostly with good results, although the benefits seem to be short-lived. Most of our problems have stemmed from my husband's drinking or smoking pot. He's not abusive, he's a good provider, but he just likes to get high. Thank God it's not often, but I'm not, nor have I ever, been okay with it. Our girls recently found his pot stash and helped themselves. When I questioned them about where they got it, they admitted they found their dad's stash. For me, this is the last straw. How can I teach my kids this is not okay when their dad's actions say otherwise? I'm now made out to be the prude since I'm apparently no fun. I'm a nurse, and even if it were legal in our state, I wouldn't use it. I told my husband that I'm done, I'm ready for a divorce. He says I'm being ridiculous. Do I need to lighten up? I think I already know your answer, but I just need to see it to validate my feelings. Anti-drug wife and mom. Now, for her part, Abby did tell this broad that the main problem seems to be that her husband sucks at hiding his stash, and that they could get in trouble for providing weed to minors. She generally doesn't seem to think that a little weed is a divorceable offense. So I can get down with that, because that's kind of the newspaper response, right? I love weed. On my days off from work, I smoke it in the morning with my coffee. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's my bedtime sleep aid. I think it's fucking fantastic. You probably shouldn't smoke it until your brain is fully developed. I understand that teenagers are going, they're gonna go out and smoke it anyway. I think underage weed smoking is like all other underage fun, and it's the most fun when you go out and do it on the sneak, right? What's better as a kid than a night of underage drinking, smoking, and other shenanigans, right? There's nothing. It's the greatest laughter I have ever had in my life is back in high school when my friends and I would get drunk and sit around and make prank phone calls. Like my Instagram handle, Gary Moyler, is still an homage to those nights that we would spend raiding our parents' liquor cabinets, showing up at somebody's house and fucking dialing up a bunch of numbers from the phone book and making prank phone calls. Fucking businesses, radio shows, people's homes, everything. It was great. You fucking laugh your ass off for 3 hours getting buzzed and making prank phone calls. But a big part of the fun is that you're doing something that you're not supposed to do, right? If your parents condone the activity, I feel like it takes some of the thrill out of it. So yeah, you can't just let your kids get drunk and smoke weed. They have to, they have to play the cat and mouse game. They have to go get the shit on their own, and they have to have their fun. And then if you catch them, you gotta fucking slam them. But as for this cunt and her problem with her husband smoking the occasional joint, if he's never abusive, and as she says, he's a good provider who just likes to get high once in a while, what's the fucking problem? Like, it sounds like this lady needs to drop the bullshit moralizing about pot smoking. Like, I'm a nurse, and even if it were legal in our state, I wouldn't use it. Because in her mind, being a nurse makes her an expert on health and well-being, which it doesn't. Like, I feel like that's a very easy kind of people, because people associate the nurse with the hospital or the doctor's office. It's where you go to get healthy. Oh, she must know what she's talking about. No. Being a nurse makes you an expert in providing medical care. Like, if you've ever been in a hospital, have you looked at the fucking nurses? Right? I mean, the trope of the, like, sassy, overweight nurse sitting behind the desk. Oh, you'll just have to wait a second, honey. Everybody here's got an emergency. No, she does not look like the picture of health, right? Nor do doctors. People who spend, lengthy, 72-hour shifts where they're getting like 6 hours of fucking rest and they're inside all fucking day. Those people are not the picture of health, okay? Now, if I need someone to put an IV in my arm, of course I'm going to consult the nurse. I need my vital signs checked? Absolutely. Then you talk to a nurse. But if I'm going to smoke a fucking J, I'm not consulting a cranky, joyless nurse to see if it's cool. Alright? So, if this lady, as she claims, has never been okay with it, then I'm legitimately curious as to how her husband, who sounds like he is way more fun than she is, has remained in this marriage for 2 decades. Like, either this broad has huge tits and a pussy that tastes like strawberry ice cream, or this guy, he knocked her up, and they had the daughters, and he's just a great dad, and he really loves his little girls, and he's kind of just, content to smoke himself silly to drown out his cunt wife's incessant nagging. Like, those are the only kind of, that's the only scenario I can see where this guy stays with her. Like, as soon as they're off to college, he's out the fucking door. He's gonna wind up banging the bud tender at his local pot shop when it gets legalized in his state. But here's what I would suggest to alleviate the problems in this household. First, have your husband sit down with your daughters and have an honest conversation about substance use and abuse. Because you, cunty nurse, are clearly not qualified to take part in this. So just sit there, observe, take notes, and keep your fool mouth shut. Then, you need to talk to your daughters about snitching. Snitching is not okay. Snitching is a betrayal of trust, and it will make people hate you. okay? That's why there is a saying that goes, snitches get stitches, all right? You don't want to get, you, the nurse, should know, of all people, that you don't want to get stitches. Stitches fucking suck. You see this half-closed right eye that I have? Right underneath it is a nice little scar where I had stitches after getting jacked in the face with a fucking football helmet. So no, you don't want to get stitches. A good way to get stitches, I didn't get mine for snitching. I got mine because my buddy and I were accusing a guy on our team of being a child molester as a goof, and he didn't think it was clearly as funny as we did. So he rightfully swung a fucking helmet at us, and I caught a piece of it in my face. But the point remains, snitches also get stitches. You want people to like you and trust you, so don't fucking snitch unless you witness something truly horrible. And when that does happen, your conscience, will tell you that coming clean is the right thing to do. And that's not snitching, that's doing the right thing. Alright? But once you've done all that, I would seriously suggest sit back and fire up a nice fat blunt. Because this fucking broad needs it, alright? You know, you obviously have it in your head. You asked Abby if you are a no-fun prude who needs to lighten up, and the answer is a resounding yes. In fact, it seems like you've had such a hard time finding anyone to validate your outdated and absurd views on adult recreational marijuana use that you went out of your way to write a letter and seek out an advice columnist who might offer a sympathetic ear. So seriously, just get the fucking stick out of your ass, and you will find life to be far more enjoyable when you do. Okay? That is my advice for the cunty nurse. And we have, before I move on, Roland wants to know who I have this weekend. Moving on. Gonna touch on that a little bit, toward the end. Roland, I have a few thoughts in mind, but I haven't done too deep of a scouting report, so I could be way off. I'll jump on that after this next Dear Abby. And I will say that if there are any children listening, you may want to usher them from the room, because the next letter does touch on a rather grown-up topic. Unless, of course, you think the kiddos are ready for a lesson on cuckolding, then by all means, keep them in the room. It'll probably answer a lot of questions about what mommy does when she brings the UPS man to her bedroom while daddy's at work. But here we go. Dear Abby, because of the recent COVID-19 crisis, my wife and I, like so many others, have been stuck at home. I've asked her questions about former boyfriends and lovers. She told me things, but when I bring it up now, she gets defensive and accuses me of belittling her and bringing back memories she has asked God to help her forget. I feel I am owed an explanation since they all took place while we were dating, including with my best friend and with a house sitter after we were married. Am I wrong to bring it up after many years and a great marriage? P.S. It's eating at me, and her stonewalling by saying I can't remember is frustrating, especially because all her friends talk about her great memory. Oh my God, her friends! I hadn't really eaten the P.S. I can't remember. She says he can't stand her stonewalling by saying I can't remember because all her friends talk about her great memory. Yes, so in short, his wife fucked a bunch of guys, and this limp dick clearly hasn't been given to her. So during COVID, I'm sure she's just been locking herself in the bathroom and blasting herself in the clit and asshole with the shower head while remembering how great it was to get rimmed by the house sitter. But here's what Abby had to say. Dear Depressed, yes, you are wrong because this isn't getting you anywhere positive. In fact, it's the opposite. If you're looking for a divorce after many years in a great marriage, keep digging. While your wife's poor judgment and infidelity are deeply regrettable, the two of you managed to build a life together and move beyond it. Sometimes people forget what they need to forget in order to function. Accept it and use your quarantine time to do something more positive than playing 20 questions. And I think she got part of the way there, right? You certainly can't sit around wallowing about how your wife banged a bunch of dudes. You know, it's your fault for marrying her and staying with her after she did all of that stuff, because you say it happened while you were dating and after you were married. So you got to consider what your options are now, in the present. As Dr. Drew says, you have to deal with reality on reality's terms. And it sounds like what you have is known as a hot wife. And the concept of a hot wife is something I've touched on this show before. A hot wife is basically a wife who has such an insatiable lust burning in her loins that while she loves her husband, she needs to get a mile of new and strange dick on a somewhat regular basis. With that in mind, I think this guy has a couple of options. The first would be to indulge your wife's sexual appetite in whatever way works for you. And I'm not saying that you have to go out to a bar and track down, you know, a well-hung stallion to play the bull while you jerk off and cry in the corner. But I do think that you have to keep things, you need to open things up sexually. Otherwise, your wife is just going to keep getting tagged by your friends and house sitters. I would say the best way to go about it would be join a swingers club. You go, you have a few drinks, everybody's touching everybody, everybody's fucking everybody, and then you dine ravenously at an all-you-can-eat buffet, and then you head home and you curl up in bed with your wife for a night of blissful post-fuck sleep. You'll have your nuts drained, she'll have gotten fucked every which way, and you can just enjoy that great post-fuck sleep, right? Is there just anything? There's nothing better. If you really go at it for a while and all of your energy and seed is just sapped, and then you fall asleep into a nice Tempur-Pedic memory foam mattress. If I was going to suggest an option for you to save the marriage, it would definitely be this one. Because the big plus side here is that in addition to your wife having a great time, you also get to drain your balls, and everyone has fun, but without the resentment that could come from simply bringing a bull into the house to cuckold you, right? If you're at a big party where everybody's wife is getting banged by somebody else and you're banging somebody else's wife, that's fun. Bringing some fucking stud with a six-pack, a big cock, and a great set of pecs home to riddle your wife silly while you sit in the corner and jerk off with shame, not quite as much fun. So I would go find a swingers club. That's what I would do. But there is, of course, the chance that you don't have the sexual appetite for such things, which is fine. Fine. Everyone drives at a different speed. But because marriage is a lifelong commitment, and what goes on in the bedroom can have a very big impact on your relationship, if you're not going to provide the dick that your wife demands, and if she is going to look outside the marriage for said dick, then I really don't think the long-term survival odds for this relationship are very good, right? If you don't have kids living with you, and frankly, I should hope you do not, if your wife is getting railed by the house sitter. That would be very bad. But if you don't have kids, then just fucking pull chalk and get a fucking divorce, right? It sounds like you have a fantastic case. And if you're from Texas, as you say, if any state is going to side with the dude in the case of a cheating wife, I feel like it's Texas. I mean, Texas is a state where they love justice and law and order, and pretty much every fucking country song that you hear is about some whore of a southern wife who can't keep her damn legs shut when the house sitter's around. So I think you've got a pretty good divorce case going in front of a Texas judge or jury. Keep that one in mind. Your final option, which I personally wouldn't recommend, but your final option is to go down in a blaze of glory with a murder-suicide. For some reason, I am catching a serious Little Bill from Boogie Nights vibe from You and Your Wife. And for those who don't remember, in Boogie Nights, William H. Macy played a porn producer who was married to Nina Hartley, and Nina was fucking anyone and everyone with a dick. If you remember, she was getting piped out in the driveway at Burt Reynolds' at his house party, and she was getting fucked silly during that New Year's Eve party when Little Bill walked in. He shot her and her paramour, and then he turned the gun on himself. He blew his own brains out. So, if you are going to stick with your unfaithful wife through an ongoing lockdown and can't open yourself sexually to the point where her indiscretions become a turn-on, then I fear, and particularly given the availability of firearms and what appears to be your deteriorating mental condition, I fear that this murder-suicide is going to be the likely outcome. Again, I wouldn't suggest this one unless the other options don't work out, because, like I said, it ends with your brains all over the living room floor. Your wedding picture is going to wind up on the front page of the newspaper, and then your classmates at the next reunion are absolutely going to be discussing the tragedy that took their old schoolyard chum Bill from them. So I would not suggest it. It's an option. I would say don't do it, but I do have my spidey sense tells me that I will be seeing a picture of you and your wife on the front page of the New York Post before the year is out. And now, yes, turning to the NFL. Well, year 2021 is just beginning. The NFL season is about done. We have 3 weekends of football left. But if you're a fan of football, it's really more like 2 weekends of good, watchable games, followed by a bye week, and then a just torturous Sunday spent hanging out watching the game with people who really aren't into football. This weekend, because that's what a Super Bowl party is. You don't get to enjoy the game at a Super Bowl party. Those things fuck it all up. This weekend, the divisional round is one of the best football weekends all season. The one I'm looking forward to the most is Breeze and Brady. I don't follow the NFC South very much. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm an NFC East guy. And I don't know too much about either of their teams in terms of defense, but offensively they have some weapons to work with. Breeze has Taysom Hill and Michael Thomas. They got Alvin Kamara, and they have managed to, just looking at the scores from the past 2 times that they've played, they've managed to put up some fucking points on Tampa Bay both times they've played this year. Brady has Gronk and Mike Evans to work with, but they got kind of blasted, I think, the last time. It was like 28-3 or some shit like that the last time they played the Saints in the regular season. So we'll see. I don't have a dog in the fight, but it will. I would love to see either of these guys play Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, this year the playoffs have been kind of marked by guys who are going to go down as all-time great quarterbacks coming into play what could be some of the last playoff football of their career. Like even Phillip Rivers, who was never a huge postseason guy, was still an outstanding quarterback in his own right. Like I think of him as one of those like kind of Tony Romo, Danny White type guys who were very good but had less substantial careers than some people might have hoped for, probably because of like the teams that they played for and who they wound up with around them. But the Colts are out, so Rivers is out. Roethlisberger gets upset by the Browns in the first round, so I'm not too sure what his future is going to hold. And now we have you got Brady and Breeze. One of them's going to go home. I think the Packers are going to beat the Rams. I don't see Aaron Rodgers losing to the Rams. I don't think that's gonna happen. I really when I look at the Rams, what I essentially see is if Dak Prescott had stayed healthy this year, the Rams look like a team that the Cowboys would have been slightly better than with a healthy Dak Prescott. So, and the Cowboys had, aside from losing Dak, they had a shitload of holes on their roster, and I think the Cowboys could have outplayed down the stretch and into the playoffs, outplayed the Rams if they had a healthy Dak. So I think Green Bay beats the Rams, and I think the Saints beat Tampa Bay, and I think we'll get that, and then I don't know, because those are just, if it's Saints Green Bay in the conference championship, I don't know enough about either of those teams to know who will win. And they just, both of those guys are so fucking ice cold. Like, 'cause you got to remember, it was only a couple years ago when Breeze got screwed out of a Super Bowl appearance by that pass interference end zone call against the Rams. So yeah, he could still, he could beat Rodgers, I think, but I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge to predictively call that one if that's what we wound up. In the AFC, you get Mahomes, who is absolutely fucking electric to watch. Of course, if you do, like, I know there are people, you got people who they love the scrappy underdog. Then you get you can always root for the Browns. I always enjoy watching the Ravens are fun, but you got the Bills Mafia. So I'm not, again, the AFC, because I'm a Cowboys fan, doesn't really fall on my radar too much during the regular season. But if you do have to have, I think, a soft spot for any two teams in the AFC, it's the Browns and the Bills. Because as a Mets fan, I can certainly empathize with those sort of like scrappy, fight your way in teams making a playoff appearance for fan bases that don't get to enjoy that thing too often. But I also played in my offense in high school was like, we were like a fucking offensive juggernaut. Like, we were like a 40-point a game team. So I do love to see guys like Mahomes just fucking run it up. So yeah, who knows when it's all said and done, as they love to say in the NFL, one of those most overused phrases. When it's all said and done, at the end of the day, you got Breeze Brady is the marquee game for me. It's the late game on Sunday, and the nice thing, you got Martin Luther King Day, so you could, if you're off work, you can stay up. I think they moved the time up. I think it's a 6:30 start, so that's nice. So that game hopefully is done between like 9 and 10. Of course, if you're listening to this afterwards, then you can disregard all of that shit, and I may have been proven to be a complete fucking idiot, but I am looking forward to this week's games. Should be a good few hours of Browns versus Kansas City, more like Progressive versus State Farm. Oh, I mean, that is just Roland Perez Jr. with a sports pop culture crossover that we can all appreciate. That is the NFL's Ruth Conda forever. Great job, Roland, and thank you for sticking with me for much of the live stream here. I really appreciate that. Wrapping up now, I ordered a pretty high-end webcam, so that should be there. Apparently they're backed up because everyone's buying them for their Zoom meetings and shit, but that should be here by the beginning of February. When that happens, I'm gonna hook myself up with one of those streaming services so I can stop streaming this thing off of my fucking phone and the browser webcam on my computer, which I use for YouTube. So come hopefully early mid-February, I'll be up on sort of a multi-stream, and maybe we'll do some Twitch and stuff. That's what's going on now, and back to the New Year's open, so I'm back to blogging. Last week I put up a blog on just kind of, if you're trying to reset yourself for health and fitness going into the new year, I put up a little blog about what I'm doing, what I'm eating, what I'm putting into my body, how I'm recovering, and some sort of things you can do to get around if you have that mental block of not wanting to go to the gym or not wanting to make changes to your diet and nutrition. Some stuff you can do to kind of take care of yourself a little bit better and have a better year. Because I know a lot of people really did have shitty years. As much as I talk shit and make fun of people for being pussies and staying in watching fucking Netflix and ordering Seamless. Look, I live in a fucking basement studio, and during the winter months, we don't get a lot of sunlight in through the windows down here. So I know how easy it can be to just fucking sit around and let a day go by without going outside and getting sunlight, and how easy it is to kind of fall into that softness. So the reason that I plug all that stuff into my blog and the podcast and stuff, sometimes it might not be the most entertaining thing, but I think it can be kind of helpful for people who are maybe going through a shitty time during COVID, whatever that means. Maybe you're isolated from people you care about. Maybe you've had some illnesses in your family. Maybe you've had some fuckery go on with your profession and your ability to make money. All of those things. So so check out the blog. You might find some helpful tidbits there. And if you like what I'm doing over here, feel free to share it with a few friends. I always say, look, if you share it with 3 people and 2 of them like it, and they each share it with 3 people, and one of them like it, we wind up building a following on my end. I will be promoting it more as we go along. Basically, as I get the setup here in better shape. I've invested in more lighting. I'm kind of teaching myself how to light videos, which is why you'll see like the purpley hues and stuff in the background and all this. So I'm hoping to get better and better at that. And as I have a sort of crisper, more complete product to give people, because I really don't like pushing out and promoting an amateurish product, but doing this on my own at home on a very limited budget, I've had to kind of like learn like hacks and tricks to do that kind of stuff. So as I'm getting a hang of it now, I'll promote more. In the meantime, check me out on social: Twitter at Mike Montone, Instagram at Gary_Moyler, Moyler. What else do I have? Definitely swipe right on me on Bumble, so you can perhaps suck my penis. Facebook.com/The Savage Crew is where I'm doing most of my live streaming right now, but I also do a concurrent stream to YouTube. So if you look for The Savage Crew on YouTube, you can find me there. And then the podcast is available on pretty much every podcast platform you can think of. thesavagecrew.libsyn, libsyn.com is the main place I used to post, but Podbean, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, iTunes, Spotify, all over the fucking place you can find it. So please check that out. Thank you for tuning in. Tell your friends, and enjoy the games as I will. Adios.